we'll start with the territorial acknowledgement. The University of Alberta, its buildings, labs, and research stations are primarily located on the territory of the Nahiyo, Ni-Itsate, Tape, Métis, Nakota, Dene, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe lands that are now known as part of Treaties 6, 7, and 8, and homeland of the Métis. The University of Alberta respects the sovereignty, lands, histories, languages, knowledge systems, and cultures of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit nations. This is the Peter Lougheed School of Leadership. I'm the director, Richard Field, and we have a guidance statement that explains who we are and how we do things, and I'd like to read that. At the Peter Lougheed School of Leadership, we seek to honor Mr. Peter Lougheed with our actions founded on values of influence, community, inter and multidisciplinarity, and caring. Our vision is for students to find a home at the PLSL, learn and grow as leaders during their journey, have a significant positive impact on their communities, and when they graduate, their course grades will be the least important part of their resume. Our mission is to provide wide access for undergraduate students to our 4 online leadership courses, which together form the Certificate of Interdisciplinary Leadership Studies. We seek to build a community of students in each course by hosting engaging and interactive online synchronous seminars. We aim to increase a student's sense of belonging to the wider PLSL by hosting events where they can engage with each other across the courses. We support and encourage leadership practice and learning across all University of Alberta campuses and faculties by choosing to lead first and manage second. So thank you, and I'll also mention that there's washrooms behind me through this door, and there's an emergency exit through this door as well, and there's emergency stairs to the far back by the front entrance desk. And I'll now turn it over to Dr. Eric DeYoung, who's the project coordinator for the PLSL.
So before we get started, I would like to acknowledge a few people that are in the room. Of course, our director, Dr. Richard Field, and there's one other person at the back here. Perhaps she should come up for a moment. Some of you, yeah, absolutely, you may have spoken with her in the past. This is our program coordinator, Angela Penny. She's certainly the person that helps make sure that everything we do at the PLSL works the way that it should. So I'm happy to introduce today our speaker, Lyall Samaroden. He is a builder of innovation and change capability within teams. His company, Bench Solutions, has been called upon to assist municipal and provincial governments, along with firms in the media, insurance, automotive, energy, and defense sectors, to help them use human-centered tools and techniques to think differently, see new opportunities, and shape the future. Lyall is also a partner with Experience Point, one of the world's leading corporate innovation training companies. He's called upon by several educational institutions around North America, like the U of A and University of Idaho, to discuss innovation and change with their executive clients. We are absolutely happy to have him here. Lyall Samaroden.
Thank you. Welcome, folks. I'm excited to be with you all today and to introduce you to the world of design thinking and help you. Like fundamentally today, folks, what I really want you to walk away with is I want you to walk away recognizing that you have a creative confidence. Okay, you have a creative confidence within you, and it's about really understanding how you can use process and tools to help you get the best of yourself as you look at some of the kind of persistent challenges that exist in the world around us, right? For those of us as students, right, in our student life, we might have challenges around how we're dealing with relationships, how we're trying to figure out what we want to be when we grow up, how to actually put ourselves out into the world. Some of us as faculty and people that are working in organizations, we've got challenges where we're like, all the easy stuff I've dealt with. What's left is the hard stuff. And so how do I look at my challenges in a way that helps me see them with new eyes so that maybe, just maybe, they can come up with an innovative solution to help you bust through and get to a whole other level of performance. And that's really what I want to help you folks unpack today. All right, now, although I do that exercise, I'm not going to lie, I do it primarily for my own giggles, folks. Okay, there is method to my madness. There's reasons why I do that. Here's the reasons. All right, this is a really good exercise that gives you some understanding of some of the habits and the creative mindsets that world-leading innovators use on a regular basis to tackle their challenges. This is the way they think. This is the way they approach their work. And there's some habits and some muscles here that you just demonstrated that you really need to start to kind of get on rinse and repeat. Okay, first things first, you all had to be learned, right? You had to adopt a learning mindset. Many of you have played rock, paper, scissors before, but maybe you hadn't played it tournament style, right? Maybe that was something new for you. So you had to embrace learning, and you had to recognize that it's like, oh, I don't know everything. I can learn, and I can actually then quickly get to number 2. I can have a bias towards action, right? I'm not going to sit around and think about stuff. I'm actually going to get in, I'm going to lean in and try and do. And I'm going to have this bias towards activity. I learn something, I try something, because I know that's going to help me learn something else, which furthers me along my quest. So you have this kind of innate bias towards action. Really good innovators, really good creative individuals have that tendency, which we all have. We just need to get back in touch with it and get confident with it again, okay? Third thing, we got to get comfortable with uncertainty, okay? I know some of you, when I gave those instructions, you were probably in your head. I could hear it a little bit because I'm telepathic that way. But I could hear your inner voices, right? Your inner voices were like, oh gosh, we're doing rock, paper, scissors. This is crazy. This is stupid, right? And you're like, oh geez, like I thought I was gonna get like a free lunch and get some learning and then get out of here, right? He wants me to do something, right? I know that inner voice was there, right? And so you have to be comfortable with uncertainty. Some of you thought, oh God, this is gonna take forever. It was over in like 45 seconds, right? So be comfortable not knowing exactly where the journey and where the quest is going to take you. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Really good innovators and people that solve complex challenges, they're comfortable being uncomfortable, okay? And then the last thing that I want to highlight is enhance your ability to let go of your preconceived notions, okay? Like your preconceived ideas. Like Richard, permission to pick on you for a second? I know Richard wanted all of us to be chanting his name in this room today, right? And he was out in the first round. He was actually helping someone at the door, right? So he didn't get that. So like let go of some of your own ideas. And some of you may have thought, oh my gosh, people are going to chant my name. Oh, this is going to feel weird. Like I just want to go under my duvet and hide. But let go. Be willing to kind of adopt and embrace the ideas and the notions that other people have and be in flow and see where it takes you. That's what really good leading innovators do. So that's just a couple ahas that I want to set the table with before we kind of kick off into content. Now, this is all about helping you explore design thinking. This is what this workshop's about. Show of hands, how many of you have heard of design thinking before? About half the room, and a couple people that haven't heard of design thinking. So those of you that raised your hands, if you were trapped with me in an elevator for like 5 to 10 seconds, what would be some highlights, some things you know about design thinking? What's it all about? What would you say as a summary of what design thinking is? Go ahead.
Prototype and fail fast.
Prototype and fail fast, absolutely. What else? Yeah.
User-centered input.
Yes, really honing in on your user. Absolutely, that's a great one.
A systematic way of solving a problem.
Oh, I love that, right? He said a systematic way of solving a problem. So I want to highlight, for those of you that are in here and you're like, oh, this sounds like it's about creativity. That doesn't sound like me. I want you to hone in on the word he just used, systematic. Right, I'm going to introduce you today to a process, right? Steps that you yourself can start to follow to guide you through this process, which helps yield an innovative outcome that's centered on your user, that you've prototyped and tested to make it better along the way, so that when you're delivering something to your user, they're like, wow, you get me. You understand me. That's amazing, right? That's what really design thinking is all about. Here's a definition for you. Okay, this is a definition by a gentleman named Tim Brown. Anyone heard of Tim Brown before? I see a couple head nods. Tim Brown is the executive chair of IDEO. Okay, IDEO is a firm in Southern California. That's where they're headquartered, in Palo Alto, California. They are a global leader in kind of doing kind of product innovations and social innovations for lots of Fortune 50, 100, and 500 companies. Okay, they became famous, and their acclaim was that when they began, they actually started in someone's garage. And when they were working in that garage, one of their first kind of clients, who really wasn't a paid client, they were doing this for free, was they were working with a guy named Steve. His last name was Jobs, right? And they helped him develop the Apple mouse. And so they've kind of done some things in the world that we all know, and things that revolutionize kind of how we interface with society today. And they've done a great job in helping lots of organizations, big and small, deal with innovation. Here's their definition of what design thinking is all about. You can read it just as well as I can, so I'm just going to highlight a couple things. Echo what you folks just told me, right? It's human-centered. When you've got a challenge that involves people, right? How people are dealing with each other, how they're using your stuff, how students are interacting, how you're interacting with your faculty. Like if it involves people, design thinking, a really good approach for problem solving. Okay? Use it for problems that relate to people. If you want to get like 10 more horsepower out of a motor, maybe don't use design thinking, right? That's a technical challenge, right? It doesn't really involve people. There's other problem-solving approaches to help you with that. But when you're dealing with people, lean into design thinking. The other thing I want to mention from this definition is use design thinking when you don't have a preconceived idea of the solution you want, right? Many of us sometimes have pre-notions of our ideas, of our thoughts, what we want the idea to be, what we want the solution to look like. If you already know that, hone it, right? Just go and start doing that. Use design thinking when you're not sure what the right answer is. When you really want to get a breakthrough innovation, something that you just haven't thought of already, that's when you want to use design thinking, because it sends you on this journey and this quest to really kind of understand things from the lens of your user, using a systematic approach that you can prototype and test with, right? That makes sense? Fantastic. Now, those of you that didn't raise your hands, okay, I have some bad news for you. Here's the bad news. You're late to the party, okay? For those of you that did raise your hands, good news. You're at the party and you're already like having your second cocktail, okay? Design thinking, it's a hot skill, okay? It's something that lots of people are starting to pay attention to. This one's a little stale, right? 2020, that's old news. World Economic Forum, it's the last big study that I've been able to find though, 2020, right? They called out what are some of the hot skills, soft skills, that leaders need to pay attention to in today's kind of complex economy, right? And as the world evolves and as we continue to evolve, things are getting more complicated, right? You're gonna have to put exclamation marks beside each of these pretty soon, because this is what the world needs. This is what senior leaders in large organizations, big and small, all around the world, said are the 3 top hot skills they're looking for. They want people that can problem solve, critical thinkers, and creative, right? Sounds a lot like that. Sounds a lot like design thinking. 2024, a more recent one, and this is actually fall of 2024, LinkedIn Learning did some studies. They do studies and trend reports all the time, and they were looking at what are some of the hot skills that you need in the market? What are we seeing people looking to LinkedIn Learning to help them resolve? This should be no surprise. Number 1 was AI, right? Everyone's trying to get on the AI train, right? That's no surprise, it's number 1. Machine learning, number 2, right? Having machines learn frequent, repeatable processes and evolve themselves without human intervention. Design thinking was number 3, okay? Ahead of Internet of Things, ahead of natural language processing, ahead of robotics. So when I say you're late to the party, good news, you're at the party now, right? Welcome to the party, folks, right? You're learning all about this stuff. You're gonna hear a lot from me about design thinking today, but I want you to hear from like one of the guys who actually kind of started to bring it back into conversation. And that's David Kelly, right? David and his brother are the 2 that worked in a garage with Steve Jobs to come up with the Apple mouse. Now, I want to call out here. This guy has black round-rimmed glasses, right? He should be wearing a black turtleneck. He has the archetype look of a creative, right? Like Steve Jobs, black turtleneck, round glasses. I want to call that out. Even though these guys look like the classic architecture of a creative individual, I need you to recognize that you have this in you. Okay? The root of the word of creativity is create, right? You create things all day long. You create assignments, you create results, you create relationships, you create processes, you create new learning plans. Everyone in this room creates things all the time. And so you're doing it, you just maybe not recognizing the approach you're taking to doing it. And dialing in your ability to use design thinking will really help you. So this is an older clip, okay? It's from 2013. It's from CBS News, okay? 2013, I'm digging into the archives. Okay, the reason why I use this clip is because it's a nice short snippet of design thinking in action. You're gonna get to see what they've done in 2 days to tackle a global challenge, okay? I wanna introduce you to Doug Dietz, okay? Doug Dietz is an industrial designer at GE Health. Okay, Doug and his team are responsible for making this bad boy. Okay, this is the world's most technologically advanced MRI machine. Okay, Doug and his team are the ones that actually were responsible for not only doing a lot of the research behind it, but actually like getting it through the manufacturing process, getting it through pre-sales, going through sales, getting it actually manufactured, and then shipped to the first hospital that purchased this machine. Now, folks, I want you to just take stock for a moment. We all live in Alberta. Folks, we have multiples of this exact machine here in Alberta. We are very privileged to have some of the technology and the care facilities that we do have, right? And even though it sometimes is not working the way we want it to, we've got some of the best stuff in the world available to us when we need it. Doug and his team wanted to do what every other good project team does after they've accomplished a great success, right? They had created this machine, it was now in sales, it was operating. Doug's like, we need to do a celebration. And so they did. Doug took the key people on the team to the first hospital where this MRI was purchased and installed. And he wanted to have the team have a successful experience seeing it in its native habitat, right? The kind of that care environment. And they wanted to be ballers, have their champagne bottles ready to pop, right? And so they did. They waited for someone to go through an MRI. And the first adult went through that day, and they came back out. They didn't have a third eyeball. They weren't missing an appendage. Like, things worked, right? The thing's working. And they were very happy and proud. The second patient on the docket for that day was a child. Okay? And this child was really nervous, and the child was clinging its mother's leg. The child was very scared to have this procedure. Now, folks, when there is someone who's very nervous and someone who's delaying the pace of procedures in a hospital, there's protocol for that. In a hospital environment, they call in a secondary. That's the protocol. Calling in a secondary means call another nurse to help assist in this situation. And so another nurse arrived, and another nurse tried to help this child kind of uncling from the mother and help this child become a little bit more capable of going through the procedure. And they were saying all the kind of quote-unquote right things. It's a non-invasive procedure, right? You just got to lie really, really still on a metal flat bed. And then you just can't move because there's magnets that are going to be spinning really, really fast around your head. Yeah, that scares me. And I'm a grown adult. And so this child was getting even more nervous, continuing to cling to the mother, right? Backlog is starting to occur. Hospital does what procedure calls for, which is call for anesthesia. And so an anesthesiologist arrives and inserts a drug cocktail into this child. Folks, if you don't know what anesthesia is, that's what it is. It's a drug cocktail. It's a mixture of drugs that puts you in a near-death-like state so that they can do great things to you to help you live. It's usually used on life-saving procedures to knock you out, and then they would use more drug cocktail to revive you. Okay? It's why anesthesia is the most expensive doctor in the hospital. The reason why it's the most expensive doctor in the hospital is because it's not only very scientific, it's also very artistic. The reason why it's artistic is because the fly in the ointment of anesthesia is us, the human being, right? You can look at me and you can say, okay, big guy, right, Caucasian, right, closer to 50 than he cares to realize. You can look at me and scientifically say how much drug cocktail I need. But the artist in an anesthesiologist also considers other variables. They ask different things because they're going to artistically determine how much to give me based on their intuitions and their hunches. And folks, sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. They can do everything scientifically correct and they can kill you. And it's not their fault because you're the fly in the ointment. You deal with things differently. That's why they carry the most insurance. That's why they're so expensive. And so Doug and his team were a little bit mortified watching this all go down. And they learned that anesthesia rates in hospitals are shockingly high for youth patients. And they started to think, wow, medical procedures aren't really fun for kids. This isn't cool. And so they started to think, well, we need to think about our challenge differently. And so they enrolled in a weekend program at Ground Zero for geeks like me, the D School at Stanford. And they enrolled in a weekend course to learn about design thinking there. And they were smart. They recognized that, look, GE Health isn't going to give them money to redesign the machine. This is the most technologically advanced MRI machine on the market. There's nothing wrong with the technology. Technology's great. So they started to ask themselves, well, how could we maybe make, when kids are having fun, where are they? What are they doing? And they started to think, well, kids are having fun at theme parks, playgrounds, places like that. How could we make medical procedures fun for kids? And they started to think, well, what do those places do that we're not doing in medicine? And they recognize that they're using a lot of story. They're using a lot of imagination. They're enrolling kids in the story at Disney even before they get to the ride. The lineups have a whole inclusion process, right? Playgrounds now have the exact same thing. Museums do the exact same thing with helping you understand, and there's characters now in museums to help enroll you in the story. So Doug and his team took a crack at an early prototype. Their early prototype looked like this. They went to a car decal shop. Right? We've had car decals now for 20 years. And they started to say, well, let's decal this one. Let's do our first one. Let's do it a pirate theme. And so when you're in the MRI, the ticking of the MRI machine is unlocking the treasure chest. Right? And so they kind of gave them a script to follow. Right? They continued to play with their prototypes and recognize that they could do more things. The big difference between these two images, yes, the theme is different, but please notice the walls. Please notice the ceilings. Folks, have a warm moment in your heart right now. In Alberta, the scrubs that our nurses wear in our children's hospitals for MRIs, their scrubs are medical-grade costumes. They're wearing costumes that align to the stories of the MRI machines. Right? That's what we're doing to make medicine more fun for kids. And this stuff is working. Right? Doug and his team, they went and they wanted to see their kind of new machines in action. And so they waited patiently for another kind of youth to go through one of their machines. And the parent, accompanied this child into the room. That is typically what happens. And the first person out of the procedure room was the adult of this child. And the adult was crying. And Doug and his team were like, oh, dear Lord, what did we do wrong now? And she proceeded to go up, this parent, and hug Doug and all the people on the team, and through broken tears was saying, my child just asked to go again. Right? This kid, backstory, terminal illness, very sick, has been through lots of medical procedures their whole life. First time they asked to do something again. So folks, that's the magic of looking through the challenge through the lens of your user. Okay? Traditional problem solving, and I'm not here to slag traditional problem solving. It has its place. But traditional problem solving says, hey, start with your limitations. Start with your budget. Start with your timeline. Start with what's technically feasible. Right? Feasibility and viability, very important lenses to consider when you're coming up with solutions. But what a design thinker does is the design thinker says, you know what? I'm going to start by looking at what's desirable. What's really desirable to my users? And understand that, and then start to overlay feasibility and viability. Now that I know what's really desirable, if I could really delight my user or my customer, right? And everyone, I'm going to use the word user, but I want you to put that in your own context, right? Every one of you has users, people that you interface with. Maybe it's your customer, maybe it's your students, maybe it's your teachers. Every one of us has users, right? And so you put yourself in those shoes and understand what's desirable to them. Then you start to look at, okay, well, how can we do this for the dollars we have, for the time that we have? And when you hit the middle, that's when the magic happens. Right? That's where real innovation comes into the foreground. This is the model. This is the design thinking systematic process that our friend here shared with us, right? This is the model that they use at places like IDEO. This is the foundational model, folks. If you go online right now and Google design thinking methods, you'll get like 60 different visuals. Okay? I'm not here to kind of anoint one over the other. They're all good. This is the foundational stuff that pretty much every model out there is predicated on. They all use these same kind of steps. This is kind of the one that kind of brought it back into boardrooms. It's the original, the OG, as we say, right? And I want to focus today on empathy and definition. This is where I think I can give you folks the best bang for your buck while you're having a lunch today, and also unpacking, hopefully, a bit of a real problem that you might be facing right now today. So we're going to focus on these first two steps to give you some insight to design thinking. First thing I want to talk about is empathy, right? And I want to be clear. When I use the word empathy is not sympathy, okay? Sympathy is when you're casting feelings of like pity and sorrow onto someone's plight. You're sympathetic. Sympathy has a place, don't get me wrong. Sympathy is great. But when you're trying to do design or problem solving, because that's what design is problem solving. When you're trying to problem solve, sympathy can be counter-effective to problem solving. People can say to you, I don't want your sympathy. What do they say? They say, I want you to understand. Right? Understanding is really what empathy is. Empathy is the deep understanding of your user and really trying to connect in with what they really need and having a good understanding of their situation, regardless of what your emotion is around it. You want to honor that that is their reality. And that reality can coexist with your reality, which may be completely different. That's what real empathy is. The pictures that you're seeing on this screen are from a group of students at Stanford, actually. Stanford, part of their educational path is they have students work with for-profit companies to have them tackle real-world challenges. Stanford gets money from these companies for doing that. This is a group of postgrad students at Stanford that were asked by a medical company to create a low-cost incubator. Okay, this company came into Stanford and they said, look, we sell gobs of incubators in privileged countries. We're not selling so many in underprivileged countries, and we're getting all kinds of data saying there are a whole bunch of youth mortality rates around in underprivileged countries, and we think we can stop that by having a really low-cost incubator to help babies, stay alive. And Stanford's like, sure, we can help with that. These students did great work to try to cut the cost of an incubator. They were having massive success getting to fractions of the cost of a regular incubator. But then they started to think, well, maybe we need to try on a different problem-solving hat. Let's try on the hat of design thinking as we look at this challenge. And we're like, wow, design thinking is all about really having empathy for our user. So they're like, well, our user, it's a baby. They're the ones in the thing, right? Difficult to connect with a baby. And then they started to ask themselves the question, well, is it the baby? Because the baby's not by choice going into an incubator. The baby's being placed there by somebody. So is it the doctor? Is it the parent that's authorizing it? And they were like, we need to go. We need to go to an underprivileged country and go see what's going on. So they hopped a plane. Right? They landed in this underprivileged country. They're like, take me to the hospital. They get to the hospital. They're like looking around, and they were shocked. They were like, wow, these hospitals have incubators. They're plugged in. There's some in rooms, there's some in hallways, but they're empty. What's going on? And they're like, oh, it's probably because we're not in the maternity ward. They went up to someone like a clerk in the hospital, and they're like, show us to your maternity ward, please. And they're like, our what? And they were like, maternity ward, where babies are born. They're like, we don't have many babies born in here. I'm like, well, where are babies born? Not in hospitals. And they had this epiphany. They learned. They started to understand some of the cultural norms that exist in underprivileged countries. In many underprivileged countries, folks, there is a belief through many cultures that you bring life into the world where life will be raised. It's kind of beautiful when you think about it. You want to bring it into the world where you're going to raise it. But the literal translation in an underprivileged country is, we live in a mud hut, you're born in a mud hut. Mud huts are cold at night. Babies, as they're sleeping on cold ground, get cold, get hypothermia, and die. So they started to think, how can we start to think about our challenge differently? And they started to think, well, maybe our challenge isn't a low-cost incubator. Maybe our challenge is, how do we keep babies warm? How do we keep babies warm? And so they came up with that thing in the top right corner. Folks, that's called the Embrace Warmer. Okay, the Embrace Warmer. Tonight, when you're at home, Google Embrace Warmer. Your heart will go 3 sizes like the Grinch, because it's an amazing story that's saved many lives. And for those of us that run for-profit enterprises, your heart will continue to grow even more than 3 sizes because it's a profit cash cow. Okay? It's an inverted backpack, essentially. It's worn on the chest of a parent, right? It's got think backpack with some holes in the top, plop the baby in there. The real kind of innovation of the Embrace Warmer, if I could use those air quotes, is that orange material that you see inside there. That is material that's been around in society for about 30 years now. It's just material that when it gets warm, it stays warm. It's a material that's used in manufacturing and industrial processes. When it's exposed to heat, it just doesn't release it very well. It stays warm. Okay? And so when it's on the chest of a parent, it gets warm, right? Drop the baby in there, boom, you've got a really low-cost incubator. This company that Stanford worked with, they hold the patent on the Embrace Warmer. They're selling millions of these to charities, to agencies all over the world. They're selling them at even a fraction of the fractional low-cost incubator price, but because of volume, it is a massive profit line for them. Right? And they're given away to mothers and people in third world countries all over the world. So the nut of my story here, folks, is get out there and observe your people, observe your users, get out where they live and work, right? Be with them. Get beyond what they say and do to really start to think about how they feel and how they think. Your job is to get beyond what they say and do, because that's what they know today. You got to get in touch with how they think and how they feel so that you can really start to see unaddressed issues that maybe you can address for them. You could be the ones that put words to this stuff. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's all well and good, Lyall. You made the case, I got to go and empathize with people. Awesome. But who? Can I go to like a typical user? Can I just go to an average person of my user population? Design thinkers say, you know what? The middle is important. But in design and in problem solving using design thinking, we pay more attention to what we call extreme users. Okay, extreme users are the people on the shoulders, on the edges of the situation. People that experience things in heightened ways. So whatever dilemma or challenge you're facing, whatever problem you're solving, think like, who are your lovers? Who loves it today and doesn't think this is a problem at all? Works great for me, right? I get my reports on time, maybe a senior leader, right? Get my reports on time, it's hand delivered, right? It's got a bow on it, life is good. Who hates it, right? The team of 6 people that have to pull this together, and this is iteration 56, and the person has to go to the dollar store and get the bow. Doesn't like it very much, right? Maybe there's some haters. So think about extremes, lovers, haters, novices, pros. Who does it all the time? Who's new to it, right? Who's ambivalent? They'll use whatever they're given. Who's got really refined needs, specialized needs in some ways? When you look at these extreme cases, you just have an easier time then as a designer and as a problem solver articulating unmet need. Okay, here, try this on for a second. Everyone visualize the people in your life, people in your family, your friends, the people you love. Who is your technophobe? Everyone who probably has one. A technophobe is someone who's shying away from the latest and greatest technology. Right? They're just not using the tech of today. If you were to spend a day with your technophobe, you would have a way easier time sharing with Lyall how technology is failing large segments of our population. You would just have an easier time being able to articulate that back to me. Go back to your friends and family, the people you love, visualize those amazing people. Who's your technophile? You've got a technophile. Technophiles are the ones that lean into the latest and greatest technology. If you spent a day with a technophile, you'd almost get a glimpse of maybe what the future holds for many of us. They've probably adapted their use of technology in ways that give you a glimpse of what's to come. Okay, that's an example of going to extremes. Hear me clearly right now. We go to the extremes for inspiration. We go there to get inspired, to see new things. We ultimately design for the many. Why would we design for the many? Why would we design for the many? We design for the many because that's who we're trying to serve, right? That's the lion's share of our population. But we go to the extremes to get inspired so that we can then come up with something that's really going to please a lot of people. Make sense? Well done. Another place we go is analogous situations. Okay, analogous situations. This is where a problem solver using design thinking says, let me think about my challenge. Well, where else in the world do challenges like this exist? Where else do they show up? Here's an example of a waiting room. Okay, this is an example of people that wanted to reduce the wait times. Okay? They started to say, well, where else do people want to come somewhere, get service, and then get on their way really, really fast? Some of you are probably thinking fast food, DMVs, banks, all kinds of stuff. I want stretch. Stretch. You know where this group went? They went to NASCAR. Yeah, NASCAR, right? NASCAR. The car makes the money on the track, not in the pits. We can change tires in 6 seconds, right? And so this group that was trying to reduce wait times, it was actually in a hospital setting as well. They learned that it's like, oh, how do you do this? And they're like, well, we have kits pre-assembled for all the things that the car typically needs on a given race. And so when it comes in, we know exactly, we have everything on the cart and on the kit to replace the tires. That's why now here in Alberta, folks, if you go to the ER, the emergency room, and you've got a break or a sprain, when you get taken back behind the curtain, you'll note that there is also a break kit or a sprain kit. There is an adult size and a child size that's placed along with you inside the room so that when the nurse or the doctor show up, they have everything they need to service you so that they can get you quickly out of the back, bringing in another customer, reducing wait times, right? The bullet train in Japan, the Shinkansen train, okay, it wasn't always a flat-nosed train. When the Shinkansen first launched, it was a regular-looking train, okay? Fast-moving trains going through tunnels make booms, okay? Loud boom sounds in Japan, that's like generational PTSD. Right? No urban center wants loud booms. There was a movement to slow the Shinkansen down when it first went live. They're not going to slow down a high-speed rail system, right? That's what it was designed for, was to go fast. So they went to the world of nature to say, well, where else in the world do things have to travel really, really fast but silently? They got inspired by nature. The kingfisher bird, a bird that's local to our area of the world. Okay? It travels really, really high. It's got good eyesight. And it dive bombs its prey from above, stabbing it with its beak, killing its prey so that it can have a lunch. The Shinkansen train that you're visualizing in your head, that slender-nosed train, is designed after the beak of the kingfisher bird. So you ask yourself, what are some of the elements, the activities, the emotions that are involved in my challenge, and where else do those things happen? Make a list. And now you've got some analogous situations to go get inspired by and learn, okay? I'll skip that for a second. Here's your challenge. I want you to think right now, what's one thing that you wish you could implement tomorrow, right? We're all dealing with challenges. We're all dealing with issues, something that could just make your world better. Okay, let me give you some more seeding on this before I start my timer. Maybe you got a thought about how the U of A could embed the voice of the student in everything the U of A does. Maybe you've got an idea around that. Maybe you have an idea about how you can increase your speed, your agility, and how you deliver assignments, how you maybe deliver to students. How you're maybe using data today in your work. Maybe you want to do that more frequently. Maybe you want to increase collaboration with your students, with your peers. Maybe you've got an idea to promote workplace diversity and inclusion, to make this place more welcoming for our marginalized populations in the world. So I want you to just think, what's one idea? It can be a big one, it can be a small one. One idea that you have that would make this world a better place for you and those around you, okay? I want you to think about that idea, that I want you to write it down. There are Post-it notes and Sharpies at the back, so we can get you ones if you need it. Raise your hand, we'll deliver that to you. Folks, you got 2 minutes. The timer's already started, so think about an idea, big or small. Something that you wish you could implement tomorrow. One thing, a challenge that you're facing. Maybe you had a goal for yourself at the beginning of the year, and it's already end of October, and maybe you haven't started these things. What could it be? I want you to think of something that you wish you could implement, because you're going to play with it for the rest of our workshop. All right. Now, I want to be honest with you folks. I kind of baited you there. Because you know what? A design thinker doesn't fall in love with an early solution, What a design thinker does is we fall in love with really awesome challenges. We fall in love with brilliant questions. So I'm going to teach you how you can turn your early idea into a brilliant question that's designed to help unlock lots of possibilities for you. So here's the formula that I want to introduce you to. Okay? Great design thinkers, we like to use what we call HMW challenges. HMW stands for how might we, right? How might we is a really interesting way to kind of design an open-ended question, right? And you can see here, right, that how might we, it opens us up not to a single idea, but to potentially many ideas. And then we're in service of our user. We're really trying to help the people that we're trying to like improve things for. So like there should be some kind of term there that denotes desirability for your user. You're not trying to force compliance on your user. You're not trying to make them do something, right? We as adults know that. We don't like to be made to do something. So it's all about trying to serve the need of your user, right? And ultimately it is about those users, those people that you're trying to please. Could be yourself, could be a peer, could be someone, a customer, all kinds of different users exist. And it's really about a benefit to them. It's not about what we want. What's in it for them? What's the benefit to the user? What are they going to get out of this? Okay? So in a moment, you're going to pair up. Okay? You're going to find someone, work with someone who's nearby. We got an equal number of people here in the room, so that's great. And I want you to pair up, and I want you to kind of start to work with your partner. You're going to have 5 minutes to do this, and in 5 minutes, you're going to spend time both working on one person's challenge. For the first 2.5 minutes, you're going to devote both your brains to helping one of you unpack who the user is and what the desired benefit is to that user. Then for the final 2.5 minutes, you'll just pivot and say, all right, enough about you, let's talk about my challenge. Okay, it sounds something like this, right? You're gonna introduce yourself to your partner and you're gonna say, hey, tell me about your idea. What did you write down? Well, who would benefit from your idea? Help them come up with users. They're gonna be writing down, oh, that's good, yeah, that is my user, wonderful. They'll write that down. Once you have identified some users, you can ask, well, what are some of the benefits that this user would get if they had your idea, your solution? And that'll help understand what the benefit is to the user. After 2.5 minutes, they'll be like, hey, I've given you enough of my brain power, give me some of yours now. All right? So 5 minutes with a partner, okay? Find a partner, and you got 5 minutes to do this, and guess what? Your time's already started. Have fun. So congrats, right? You've just taken some steps to start to formulate your own how might we questions, right? You now have some users in mind, you've got some like desired benefits, you just architect those questions. Well, how might I help X user achieve said benefit? And it opens you up then to this exploration of potentially many different solutions beyond just your first idea. Your first idea might be a good one. I'm not here to say it's wrong or incorrect. It might be the right idea. But this is a way for you to then look at other potential aspects and other potential solutions that you've already precluded when you're kind of following an early idea. Okay, so this is how you open yourself up. You're gonna work with your partner again. Right? What did we talk about? We didn't just talk about how we kind of like define great challenges. We talked about, well, we got to go out and empathize. So now that you have some sense of working with your partner on what their challenge is, I want you to, again, for 5 minutes, spend your time equitably, 2.5 minutes per challenge. I want you to think, well, who are some extreme users? Right? Think about the lovers, the haters, the novices, the pros, people that have really refined needs, people that are more ambivalent. Where could you go to get inspired? And then I also want you to do some work to say, well, let's step back from our own specific challenge and say, well, where else in the world do things like our challenge exist, right? What are the core activities or the elements of our challenge? Where else do those things show up? And maybe, just maybe, you can come up with some amazing analogous situations to help each other go out and get inspired. You know the drill, folks. You got 5 minutes. Time's already started. Get busy. Well done, folks. I hope you're starting to see how design thinking can really assist you in your journey, right, towards getting ready to go out there and conquer this amazing world that we're all in, and deal with your challenges in different ways, right? We got persistent issues. We need new eyes to look at our challenges, and this is a way that we can do it. Thanks, folks. Have an amazing day.